$10.3 billion just dropped on the B-21 Raider program, and Pentagon insiders are stunned, not because it's too much, but because experts say it's nowhere near enough. While the Air Force celebrates accelerated production, defense analysts are sounding alarm bells. The Heritage Foundation just published a scathing report. Current production rates are too little, too late to counter China. Military experts are demanding the Air Force double production capacity immediately. And here's the kicker. Even with this massive funding boost, America might not have enough stealth bombers ready when conflict erupts in the Indo-Pacific. The clock's ticking, and China's not waiting. The Department of Defense just unveiled the largest single investment in any Air Force airframe in over a decade. $10.3 billion for the B-21 Raider in fiscal year 2026. Congress threw in an extra $4.5 billion specifically to accelerate production. On paper, this looks like an overwhelming commitment to American air power. But behind closed doors at the Pentagon, a fierce debate is raging. Top military analysts, think tanks, and even Air Force generals are asking the same question: is it enough? The answer coming back from experts is shocking. Absolutely not. If you think America needs to build these bombers faster to stay ahead of China, type "build more" in the comments. What you're about to discover will change how you see the urgency of the threat we're facing. The funding that shocked experts June 26, 2025, the Pentagon unveiled President Trump's defense budget. Buried in those documents was a number that made headlines: $10.3 billion for the B-21 Raider. That's more money than some countries spend on their entire military for a year. The breakdown tells the story. $2.3 billion from the base budget, another $4.5 billion from Congress's reconciliation bill, officially called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The rest covers testing, nuclear mission integration, and infrastructure improvements. Defense officials praise the allocation. This historic defense budget prioritizes deterring Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific, one senior official told reporters. The Air Force confirmed they're investing in infrastructure necessary to support increased yearly production capacity. Sounds great, right? America's fully committed to building the world's most advanced stealth bomber. Problem solved. Except it's not. Within days of the announcement, defense analysts began publishing scathing critiques, and these weren't fringe voices. We're talking about the Heritage Foundation, the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, and top Air Force generals going public with concerns. Robert Peters and Sean Barnes from the Heritage Foundation didn't mince words in their analysis. They called the current B-21 production plan too little, too late. Their argument? Even with $10 billion in funding, the production rate remains dangerously inadequate for the threats America faces. Here's why. The Air Force officially plans to build 10 B-21 Raiders per year once full-rate production kicks in. 10 aircraft annually. At that pace, reaching even 100 bombers, the Air Force's minimum goal, takes an entire decade. Do the math. We're in 2025. Production's ramping up slowly from the current 3 per year. Hit 10 per year by, say, 2028 or 2029. Maintain that pace through the late 2030s. That's when America finally has 100 operational B-21s. The late 2030s. That's 15 years from now. Peters and Barnes looked at that timeline and reached a stark conclusion. At best, the nation is unlikely to have even 100 aircraft until the late 2030s. This is both too little and too late. The China timeline. Nobody's talking about. Here's what has Pentagon planners losing sleep. China's not operating on America's timeline. They're not waiting 15 years while we slowly build our bomber fleet. Chinese military analysts published articles in state-controlled media downplaying the B-21's viability. Their argument? The United States can't afford enough bombers to make a difference in a conflict. They're betting America won't produce sufficient numbers quickly enough to matter. And you know what the terrifying part is? They might be right. Dr. Christopher Bowie, a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, wrote a comprehensive analysis of what America needs versus what we're actually building. His conclusion mirrors the Heritage Foundation's assessment. If the United States continues on its current course, it could end up with a force ill-suited to the challenges posed by China, Bowie warned. He's calling for the Air Force to fundamentally restructure its force composition: more bombers, fewer short-range fighters, a ratio similar to what we had in the 1950s and 60s when strategic bombing was our primary deterrent. But here's where it gets really alarming. Multiple Chinese publications affiliated with the People's Liberation Army assessed that America lacks the industrial capacity and political will to produce B-21s in large numbers. They're essentially saying, we've studied your procurement process, we've seen your production rates, and we're not worried. That should terrify every American. Lieutenant General Andrew Gabera tried putting a positive spin on things. The work you've seen from Congress to get us those additional funding tells me it's an absolute show of confidence that we're on the right track. But even he couldn't hide the underlying concern about production speed. The reality? Right now, America's producing roughly 3 B-21 Raiders per year in low-rate initial production. The $10 billion boost is supposed to accelerate that to 10 per year eventually. But defense experts are screaming that 10 per year isn't nearly enough. Before we reveal exactly how many B-21s experts say we actually need, hit that like button and subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. It costs nothing, but helps us continue bringing you critical defense analysis. The shocking number America actually needs. So if 100 B-21s isn't enough, what is? The numbers coming from defense analysts range from eye-opening to jaw-dropping. On the conservative end, Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin and General Thomas Bussiere, head of Air Force Global Strike Command, are pushing for at least 145 B-21 Raiders. That's 45 more than currently planned. And even they admit that number might be conservative, given current global tensions. The Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments goes further. Their analysis suggests America needs a fleet of 200 or more B-21s to adequately deter China and Russia simultaneously while maintaining readiness for sustained operations. 200 bombers. At 10 per year production, that's 20 years of continuous manufacturing. We'd be building B-21s until 2045. But wait, it gets more extreme. Brandon Weichert, a national security analyst, published an analysis arguing America needs close to 300 B-21 Raiders. His reasoning? The tyranny of distance in the Indo-Pacific theater combined with the reality that China's building up forces at unprecedented speed. Think about what 300 bombers means. At current planned production rates of 10 per year, we're talking 30 years of manufacturing. 30 years. We'd be rolling the last B-21 off the assembly line in 2055. That's absurd. By 2055, the technology would be outdated. The threat environment would have evolved beyond recognition. The entire concept makes no sense unless production rates dramatically increase. Which brings us to the solution experts are demanding: double the production rate to 20 aircraft per year and build a second manufacturing facility to make it happen. The Heritage Foundation laid out the case explicitly. The nation needs a second production facility for the B-21, regardless of the final number of aircraft to be procured. They're not asking, they're not suggesting. They're stating it as a strategic imperative for national survival. At 20 per year, Hitting 200 aircraft takes 10 years. That's achievable. That's a realistic timeline that might actually deter Chinese aggression before conflict erupts. But here's the problem. The Air Force isn't committing to that. Their official statement says they're investing in infrastructure for increased capacity, but won't specify exactly how much increase. They're playing coy with production numbers while the clock ticks down. Why current production rates spell disaster? Let's talk about what inadequate B-21 numbers mean in practical terms. This isn't abstract policy debate. This is life and death for American service members and the survival of our allies. Currently, America's bomber fleet consists of about 141 aircraft total, B-1 Lancers, B-2 Spirits, and B-52 Stratofortresses. But only 18 of those are stealth bombers, the B-2 Spirits. 18 aircraft capable of penetrating advanced air defenses. China's building integrated air defense systems specifically designed to shoot down American bombers. Russia's doing the same. Against these threats, non-stealth bombers like the B-1 and B-52 become expensive targets, not effective weapons platforms. The B-21 was supposed to solve this, replace the aging B-1 and B-2 fleets with a larger force of modern stealth bombers that can actually survive in contested airspace. But replacement only works if you build enough new aircraft to cover the capability gap when old aircraft retire. Here's the math that keeps Air Force planners up at night. The B-1 fleet's aging out. The B-2 fleet's down to 18 operational aircraft after 2 were lost in accidents. If the B-21 production stays at 10 per year, there's a window, probably in the early 2030s, where America has fewer operational stealth bombers than we do right now. Think about that. We're spending $10 billion to potentially decrease our stealth bomber capacity in the short term. That's not a buildup. That's a capability gap waiting to be exploited. And China's watching. Every Chinese military planner knows American acquisition timelines. They know our production rates. They know our political system makes rapid changes difficult. They're calculating the optimal window to act before American military superiority becomes insurmountable again. Defense analyst Derek Solon put it bluntly, "We could certainly change their calculations if we don't meet their expectations and produce the B-21 in large numbers. The operative word is if. Right now, we're meeting their expectations. Slow production, inadequate numbers, insufficient deterrence. Analysts warn that a small stealth bomber fleet might handle small-scale operations, but it's dangerously insufficient for sustained campaigns against peer competitors. The Indo-Pacific theater alone is vast. Just covering Taiwan scenarios requires dozens of bombers flying continuous operations over enormous distances. Add in potential simultaneous conflicts, Russia in Europe, Iran in the Middle East, China in the Pacific, and 100 bombers becomes laughably inadequate. You'd run out of combat-ready aircraft in weeks. The industrial reality check. So why isn't the Air Force just building more, faster? The answer comes down to cold industrial reality and political constraints that frustrate everyone involved. First, there's only one production facility, Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. Northrop Grumman's invested over $2 billion in infrastructure and digital manufacturing capabilities there. It's state-of-the-art. But it's still just one factory. Building a second facility isn't simple. You need specialized clean rooms for stealth coatings, massive assembly halls for flying wing structures, thousands of trained workers with security clearances, supply chains from over 400 contractors in 40 states, all coordinated perfectly. The Heritage Foundation estimates a second facility would cost billions in upfront investment and take years to become operational. But they argue it's absolutely necessary. History has shown the perils of settling for what seems affordable rather than what is necessary, they wrote. Quantity, as much as quality, will define the strategic balance of the 21st century. Then there's the budget reality. Even with $10 billion for the B-21, the Air Force operates under overall budget constraints. Every dollar spent on bombers is a dollar not spent on fighters, tankers, space systems, or nuclear modernization. The Sentinel ICBM program alone is eating billions after massive cost overruns. Air Force leadership faces brutal trade-offs. Retire legacy fighters early to free up money for B-21s? Congress pushes back because those fighters are built in their districts. Cut other programs? Defense contractors lobby against it, request more money. OMB and Congress have budget caps. It's a vicious cycle where everyone agrees we need more B-21s faster, but nobody wants to make the hard choices required to actually achieve it. Pentagon Acquisition Chief William LaPlante revealed something telling. He said the B-21 program was intentionally structured for low production rates to make it resilient to Washington turbulence. In other words, they planned for slow production because they assumed budget cuts and political interference would kill any program trying to scale up quickly. That's planning for failure. That's accepting inadequacy as the price of political survivability. And it's exactly the wrong approach when China's racing to military superiority. What needs to happen now? So what's the solution? How does America actually build enough B-21s fast enough to matter? First, the Air Force needs to commit publicly to doubling production rates, not vague statements about increased capacity. A clear commitment, 20 B-21 Raiders per year by 2028. Put it in writing, make it official policy. Second, Congress needs to fund a second production facility immediately. The $4.5 billion in the reconciliation bill was a start, but it's not enough. Authorize another $5 to $10 billion specifically for a second plant. Get ground broken within 12 months. Third, streamline the acquisition process. The B-21 program's been relatively successful so far because it avoided the bureaucratic nightmare that plagued the F-35. Keep that momentum. Give program managers authority to make rapid decisions without endless committee approvals. Fourth, prioritize the B-21 over less critical programs. The Air Force wants lots of things. It needs strategic bombers more than anything else. Make the hard calls. Retire legacy aircraft faster. Cut marginal programs. Focus resources where they matter most. Fifth, consider allied participation. This one's controversial, but Brandon Weichert makes a compelling argument. Japan and South Korea have advanced industrial bases and face the same Chinese threat we do. Partner with them on B-21 production. Yes, there are technology security concerns, but those concerns need to be weighed against the alternative, inadequate bomber numbers when war breaks out. The bottom line is simple. Either America commits to building B-21s at the scale and speed necessary to deter China, or we accept that Chinese analysts are correct. We lack the industrial capacity and political will to maintain air superiority. That's not acceptable. Our brave service members deserve better. Our allies depend on us. And frankly, American global leadership requires it. Outro. Here's the reality. The Air Force got $10.3 billion for the B-21 Raider, the largest single aircraft investment in a decade. And it's still not enough. Defense experts across the board are saying current production plans leave America vulnerable in exactly the time frame when China's most likely to act. We need more bombers, faster production, and a second facility. Anything less is strategic malpractice. The men and women of the United States Air Force are ready to fly these incredible aircraft into harm's way to defend our nation. They deserve a fleet large enough to actually accomplish the mission. Not promises, not optimistic projections, real aircraft, real deterrence, real security. If this analysis opened your eyes to the urgency of ramping up B-21 production, smash that like button and subscribe. Our national security depends on citizens understanding these issues and demanding action from our leaders. Stay informed, stay engaged. America's air dominance depends on it.